Welcome back to the Gaming Tailgate Podcast. I'm CDJ, joined by Tommy. Tommy, how's it going?
Bit overwhelmed today, actually, in a good way, though.
Before we get into Dynasty, first off, make sure you visit thegamingtailgate.com. Click on that Information Central for all the latest game news. Leave us a 5-star review. We would really appreciate it. Let's get the housekeeping out of the way first. The next deep dive will be Road to Glory. We don't know when that will be, and not sure when the Team Builder site will load, but we got to think that's going to launch here pretty soon.
Yeah, I'm thinking the team builder definitely will be here before again, this is my expectation, but I would assume it will be here before the actual early release on the 15th. So,
I said somebody asked us on Twitter today about it. My thought was, I would guess next week, the week of what is that, the 8th, just because then they have a week to get the bugs ironed out before people actually get the copies in their hand. Because if they wait till launch week and they got to deal with game server issues plus team builder server issues, that just seems like they're asking for a nightmare.
for sure, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And plus, obviously, they don't want to do it this week with the holiday. So,
Yeah, I was gonna say the rest of the week probably be a skeleton crew around, I would think, before they really get locked in next week for here on out, probably. First off, we did get our first look at the game menu. That's one of those we knew it was gonna have a unique look or feel, and here it is on the screen. Tommy, what did you think of this real quickly?
yeah, I mean,
A
it
couple things
definitely
stand
jumps
out.
out. It really stands out from, years past. The obviously, assumingly this is your favorite team is USC in this case. But then on the screen, of course, you have the play now is the last mode you must have played, so that's why it's on continue. But then obviously your other options are here as well. Of course, Ultimate Team is going to be very prevalent. But then you have, can go into Dynasty. Of course, it's where we all want to go. But then the things that they really haven't told us about still kind of pop up out of up here at the top.
Mm,
Game modes, obviously, we know what that is, but then training. So again, assuming that's going to be kind of similar to the trainer that we had in NCAA 14, I believe, and then obviously Madden has a lot of their trainer.
mhm,
We haven't seen any mention of if there's any mini games available, but I'm guessing not, but who knows? But then create and share really
mm,
stands out. What are we creating? Obviously, team builder teams, but
mm,
what are we sharing? Is that playbooks? Is that sliders? Is that, in
mm,
theory, maybe rosters? But again, who knows? Is rosters you can only
mm,
edit player ratings, so it's not going to be names or anything like that. So maybe it is rosters. Again, a
mm.
lot going on here, even just from the quick view there.
The blog really talks about you could divide it up into create a coach and recruiting. Yeah, there's some other details in there, but I think those are the two big pillars. So we'll go through those a little bit here. So we'll go through those, and of course, we're going off of what we've learned from the college football media attendees and the YouTube creators who went down there, and then from the blog and video today. First off, building a coach. They talk about how you can start as either a coordinator or a head coach. The options you get, they try to really match real life where no coach is great at everything. So what we're going to get is a skill tree that you can't max out. Realistically, there's an option, the possibility that everybody in your online dynasty is going to have a different skill tree. Every coach could be different. We learn about progression and also with those assistants, and we'll talk about this later, but they can stack and have their own unique skill trees as well. Some of this, in my opinion, Tommy, is a lot like NCAA Football 14, and I don't say that in a mean or negative way, but I felt like when I was reading the coach section, I grasped it a lot quicker than the recruiting because it felt like a lot of this, the basis we saw back in 14.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of lends itself to 14, and in all reality, it also lends itself to some of Madden with the ability to upgrade certain
Mhm.
positions and kind of focus on those from a head coach or actually no, it's in Madden it's just the coordinators, I believe. So yeah, it's kind of a blend of the two, I think. And it again, if you have history with those games, I think it's going to be a lot easier to dive into. But if you come in blind or don't have a relationship with it, then you're probably going to take your time to have to learn how to actually use all that stuff.
We get to see throughout the course of a game, there's XP gold categories. These things pop up for tasks you complete. Some off the field, like draft. If you produce players that go to the league, that helps your coach, which makes sense. Game, we have individual things. You can see some of that in the screenshots in the blog. And when you're playing the game, you'll get a pop up. Recruiting, which makes sense. Obviously, if you're a great recruiter, you're going to get points there as well. And also the season stats and weekly stats, getting the top 10, 4,000 yards for a season, etc. As we saw on the previous screen, it tracks it for you. We kind of had that in the past, and Madden has had that as well, where it really tracks your offensive progress. Then if you get an XP summary, looks like also well as a recruiting update. There's different coach archetypes, and we kind of knew some of these. It seems like the three main hubs, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, motivator, recruiter, tactician. But it sounds like ultimately there's about 11 of them total of the different archetypes, and you cannot respec your coach. Once you make or buy an ability or start going down a certain path, there's no undoing it.
Yeah, I mean that's a big departure from the past. I'm pretty sure at the end of the season you could respec your coach completely, if I remember right. So yeah, it's pretty big change. You better know what you're buying when you buy it. So it could have a big negative impact if you go down the wrong path or something.
It does talk about how you can become a hybrid coach who is strong in multiple areas, and their example is a talent developer can be both can be great at both getting players and developing them. It sounds like the goal is they really want to be like the CEO style head coach, which historically a lot of the greatest coaches, especially later in their career, are really just CEOs. They're great at hiring, they're great at overseeing, they're great at managing the entire program top to bottom. They may not be the most involved day to day, or at least on the ground level, but they know everything going on, and that seems like they want people to build toward with their legendary coach as they get through dynasty mode.
Yeah, and reading here, it says program builder or CEO. I'm thinking those are actually two distinct separate outcomes. Like they're not just placeholder
Yes.
names, those are the actual names of those roles. So I'm curious what the difference is there.
It does mention there's no single formula to get to those statuses. You can mix and match different combinations and paths getting there. Mentions again the 11 different types with their own focuses and perks. And they've stressed this several times throughout the blog. Remember, no coach can be great at everything. So that the user don't feel like if you don't have a skill tree maxed out or a tier maxed out that you're not doing it right or not doing it well. You might be just fine. And this is part of this. It seems like it's going to take a lot for people to figure out. I know reading this took me a little bit, and I am kind of worried for, I don't want to say the casual people, but the people who don't live perpetually online, like everybody listening to us. We wait for every blog, we wait for every video, so we get it. And we get on websites or social media, we can ask questions and understand it. I am concerned about what the more casual person is going to think of all this.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot that, again, like I said, if you go in blind and don't have some of that background, it's gonna overwhelm some people. I love the depth, and I think a lot of people will love the depth, but at the same time, some people will kind of throw their hands up and say, "Why do I want to do this?" So there
Mhm.
better be a lot of options for automation to just let the computer do all of it for you or something like that. But again, we'll have to kind of wait and see.
It does talk about there's I don't want to say a currency, but you earn coach points. I believe that's through the XP. We see that here. And Tommy, you pointed out before the show we were talking. There's also an S one later. This coin here has a C in it. That's for coach. And there's one for the players later that have an S, we believe, for skill, which we'll get to later. But it's worth noticing that they look very similar, but are different. But if you know you're on the coach screen, you're probably looking at the coach points. Create your coach, you get to select which base archetype you start with. And we saw that on the last screen. What's interesting is what they call this is the coach ability screen here. And it's more of a kind of like a spider web instead of versus meters or trees in the past. I know we're calling it a skill tree, and basically that's what it is, but it gives you a good look at where you're strong at. Now you're going to have to know what these icons mean. They love their menus and words this year in the menus, which is great. But then the one time you really want it for all of them, they only have it for the highlighted one, like motivator, architect, recruiter, tactician, and I can't remember the other two, Tommy. I'll be completely honest with you.
I don't know if the bottom one, the blue one, I think we saw a screenshot of that earlier. The other one, I don't think they've shown anything on the one that's kind of like a flag. Maybe that's some sort of a recruiter, like landing the recruit or something. I don't know.
How do the abilities work? Now we know from the gameplay blog that the players have abilities, also the coach have abilities, and those things can also help your team as well. So there's a lot of outside variables outside the player ratings that can really influence what happens on the field.
Something I just noticed in the screenshot you have up there, it shows how to unlock that master motivator. So
Mm.
um, it allows you to kind of see what it's going to take to be able to get there.
Also mentions the coaches no longer is a coach great at recruiting across the board. They will specialize in specific position groups, which make your staff composition that much more important. So basically, they're trying to make it like real life coaches here. They don't mention the names at all ever. But are you a quarterback whisperer? Very much is like a Lincoln Riley. Are you great in the trenches and committed to the no fly zone? There's a lot of coaches that could probably apply to, whether it be a Sam Pittman or a Mario Cristobal. How does your staff complement you?
Yeah, and
So
you see some of that in the video to where they actually
mm,
dive into the menu and you see them unlocking points within that skill for a specific position group. So again, within the master motivator, that doesn't mean you're graded across the board with all players. You have to then give points into that for for quarterbacks or for position groups or whatever like that. So it's definitely there's a lot to see in that video. It's 6 minutes long, but there's a lot to kind of miss. You have to kind of catch it fast.
And it gives an example here with the scheme guru archetype where you can upgrade your fast tempo offense and gives you the boost. And each boost has tiers. So that, I mean, there's a lot to track here. That's one of those that we read it and we kind of understand it. I feel like I won't fully understand it till July 16th.
For sure, yeah. Until we get our hands on it, it's we can assume some things, but at the same time, it's there's still a lot of unknowns.
It also mentions here about you can make your team be unfazed by rowdy home field crowds by just upgrading the discipline communication ability. One thing they mentioned is there's a lot of counters. So no matter what offensive play style is out there, there's a defensive counter. So obviously, if let's say Tommy and I are in an online dynasty together and you level up this to make your team be excellent in the hurry up, fast pace, I can also then on my side go and then hopefully if I plan it out right, make it to where going on the road doesn't phase my players. Program builder and CEO, they've mentioned that it seems like a bunch of times throughout this blog. So it's worth mentioning again that they're only available to head coaches. That seems like that's kind of like the end goal you want to get to. And earlier you mentioned about these different tiers. As you look here, I believe they're all different positions. Like right now they're in this one. So the running game, those boosts obviously applied to your
So
obviously
yeah, I
applied
would
to your halfbacks and
guess
fullbacks.
in order it'd be quarterback, running back, receiver for like a web
Mm,
catching, offensive lineman blocking. Bulls has got to be the defensive lineman. To the right of that is linebackers. I can't tell exactly what that icon is, but I'm assuming so. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
the
Oh, it's a
knight.
knight. It's a knight's helmet. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's got to be
that one's
linebackers, and this is no fly zone and
yep.
special teams. If you can get to elite, then obviously you get another big boost there. And to get to
Yeah,
the elite, sign two top five recruiting classes.
that's definitely interesting that you basically have two tiers that you can unlock. So in theory, you could put 8 points into quarterbacks if you really wanted to. And again, that's just for recruiting quarterbacks only. So the tier four or the yeah for running backs, the always be Cruton in the screenshot, that's just for running backs. So again, you're not going to be able to recruit every single player as easily as you could in the past.
So do you think people will use this just as a generality, or do you think a lot of people will specifically realize I'm not very good at recruiting position X? I'm going to focus on that. Remember, once you get this, you can't respec it. So you better make sure you understand your strengths and weaknesses. Am I reading that incorrectly?
No, no, for sure. I think, yeah, exactly. It's playing up to your strengths. So like it depends upon what you want to do on the offensive side of the ball. Do you want to be running the ball all the time? In which case you'll focus on your line or offensive linemen and running backs. Whereas if you're a passing game, you'll focus more on the receivers and quarterbacks. So yeah, it all depends upon how much or difficulty are you having in signing those certain players. Maybe your play style doesn't match up to you pass the ball all the time, but you still need an elite running back, so you put more points into recruiting running backs or something like that.
Then it goes into talking about coordinators, similar to what we had in the past. They're making it so they're more important, especially as they can help you stack ability. So, like we mentioned earlier, if you want to be a full recruiting staff, you can do that, but it'll probably come to the cost of some other category.
Yeah, and they also mentioned that as a offensive coordinator, you still technically can increase your defensive skill sets for recruiting or whatever, or for
Mm.
particularly for like game day stuff, but it won't have as much of an impact as an offensive coordinator as it would, on the other side of the ball. So if you put points into the defense, you get some bump, but not nearly as much versus if you were a defensive coordinator
Mm.
or a head coach in that case.
So some of that's more kind of, I don't want to say grooming them, getting them ready for when they become a head coach, then it'll be a full-fledged boost. But right now they can have as a coordinator, you just get a minimal increase. Is that how you read that as well?
Only on that side of the ball. As an offensive coordinator, you still have a big influence on the offense, but on the
Right.
defense, you have a smaller influence.
It says the coordinators will automatically progress their archetypes and abilities. You cannot control which ones they purchase or nor respect the coordinator's abilities. So they will make their own and force their own path, basically. So you have to hope it fits your style. And what's unique, as we'll get to later on, is you can hire and fire your coordinators, which there's obviously some elements we've heard from the college football media that didn't get mentioned in this blog.
Yeah, honestly, that's to me that's a big thing. Before, again, you could upgrade your offensive defensive coordinators yourself, so you could kind of tailor them how you wanted it. But if you have hire a coach and he starts putting all his points into offensive linemen, and you're trying to pass the ball more, then you may fire him and try to hire a guy that's better with quarterbacks or something like
Mm.
that. So it's very interesting how that works.
And here on this screen, you can see where, and I'll zoom in. These are the three different coaches, the head coach, offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, all there at one time. You can kind of see where they are working together. Like this one, I can't see if there's any blue there, but you can see the yellow and the red, obviously going towards I believe that's the motivating. So that's apparently where this coach decides was really important to him is we're going to do that. So obviously, if you feel like it's going the one direction you don't like, then maybe you do make a coordinator change at the end of the season. Next, climbing the coaching ladder, similar to what we had in 14.
Yeah, it's very similar. The
Mm,
main difference is before it was all within 1 week in the dynasty, whereas
mm,
now it starts in, I think, after the championship game,
mm,
and you can fire your coach during that week. And then for the next 5 weeks of the dynasty, it will kind of do the coaching carousel over those 5 weeks. So some people may sign in the first week, some people may sign in the last week or something
mm.
like that. It did also mention though that if you let's say you fired your coach, your defensive coordinator, let's say, if you don't hire somebody by the end, then there will just kind of be one leftover default candidate. So there will always be a candidate to fill your position.
One thing the blog mentioned here, like you said, there's the 5 week ties in probably to the advancement of postseason games. So it isn't like you're just 5 weeks of coaching advancing. But one thing they mentioned specifically is if you want to think ahead a little bit with your jobs, let's say, for example, Memphis offers you and you really don't want Memphis, but maybe you can kind of play the long game here and look at their top candidates. You can say, well, if the dominoes keep falling over these next few weeks, the Oregon State job might
Oregon
be
State's going to
open,
come open.
or
Yep.
Charlotte. And I'll be honest, I cannot make out that small icon there.
I think it's UL Lafayette, the region. Or
Oh, it's
no,
UMass. It's
it's
UMass. Now that I zoom in,
UMass.
it's
Yeah, that's right.
incredibly far. Hopefully, that's a little. Hopefully, that's more easier to read on the console version than it is on the screenshot. So the example is basically you kind of think about the long game as you do it. And here you get a little further into the carousel. You can see Ole Miss still kind of looking. Their candidates, Wake, Colorado, Iowa State. Maybe you want that Colorado job. I think it's interesting here that we don't have a coach license, but if you look at their coaching type, it coincidentally matches up, I think, to real life. Dave Clawson, scheme guru, Deion Sanders, elite recruiter, Matt Campbell, master motivator. It seems like coincidentally those line up.
The other thing to note from the screenshot is that it has kind of those meters underneath each of the teams on the left-hand side, so you
Mm.
can kind of see where they are in their coach hiring in theory.
And it's interesting that Ball State's looking for both the head coach and defensive coordinator. So I don't know if they
Yeah,
filled
but
their
they have
OC or if he's staying
yeah,
on
they
to
have a
help with the transition. That's interesting.
One one thing they didn't go over here, and tell me if I missed it, but they've talked about in the past that, or we've learned from the media that um, if a coach is replaced, then some players may transfer with him, but
Mm.
it doesn't really talk about how that is linked. Like, is it again offensive? If the offensive coordinator leaves, then the offensive players are more likely to leave with him, assuming he recruited them. But um, I'm curious how that works.
Yeah, it never said that. And I had that in my nose. It's interesting. Like you said, the college football media and the YouTube creator attendees, they mentioned that if you theoretically, they mentioned in one sense, if you fire a coordinator, some players that are tied to him, and we don't know, like you said, we don't know what that means exactly, they're more likely to leave. And conversely, if you hire a certain coordinator, they may bring in players with them. But what I think is interesting is you can't go and poach a coordinator. I think you can only pick from what's in the pool. Is that the way you understood it? I know a lot of people were hoping they could go poach, but I don't think that's really how it works in this game.
Yeah, I think it's the top. You get a top three available. Again, you have to fire your coach before you can hire somebody else. So yeah, you can't just hope that he's there, and you have to fire him the week of the conference championship game, I
Mm,
believe. So you don't have another chance after that. Honestly, it's hard to tell because here we have this job opening to where you
mm,
can hire a coach. I don't think you could go and well, actually, no, these are the candidates for that position. So
mm,
I think I remember reading that it's based upon how well they match up. And of
mm.
course, you want to hire the best available for your school. So, um, If you notice, they also have the interested schools that are down there. I don't know if that's schools that are interested in them or schools they're interested in. Um, Kind of interesting there. But yeah, it looks like they give you some candidates, and some are existing coaches at other schools.
So I wonder if they float you their resume throughout the year, or maybe at the coaches clinic. That's how you got to view it as. And it's
Exactly.
interesting
Yeah.
that on this, and maybe it's just what was loading at the time when they took the screenshot. We have silhouettes for the pictures, but on the next one, Danny White very much has a picture. He's not anonymous, talking to you in the dark
Yeah.
shadows like it implies there.
Yeah. He's it's his agent. You're not actually talking to the
That's
coach. I did
I,
not talk to that school.
and they're being honest. But you can
Exactly.
like before you hire, you can go look at their talent tree, see how it matches with yours. What I think is interesting, we don't get to see that. And then you make the hire and you find out, I think, believe on the week advance if they take it or decline it. So that's basically how that works. People wanted that featured of hire and fire coordinators. It'd be nice to poach, but I think this probably makes a little bit more sense in the short term, at least, to have some common sense versus everybody instead of going after the 5-star running back. Now they'd be going after the 5-star coach. So maybe it's a little better that it's curated to the user.
Yeah, for sure. But the interesting thing I just thought of is that if you're in an online dynasty, do you poach somebody else's coordinator from another human just to kind of weaken their team a little bit? Kind of
If
a
they
gamesmanship
if
there.
they show up as being interested, like if I see it's yours,
Exactly.
I'll just take him just to spite you. I may not have a need for him,
Exactly.
but I
Yeah.
but if you recruited well with him, maybe I'll take him just to see if I can get some of your players away. Has nothing to do with what he brings, helps me really. It's just to stick it to you. Uh, I
Exactly.
don't,
Yeah.
from the screenshots at least, I don't think you can sway or try to talk persuade your coordinator to staying. Like I think if you take somebody who's interested in another school, I think they go. Is that the way you viewed it?
That's a good question.
I don't think that's. I'm not getting
I
the
can't
impression that's
remember if that was
possible
covered or not.
from either the blog or the screenshots. Don't really imply that, but maybe it wouldn't since it's not the user's coach is leaving here.
True. Yeah.
The big thing, this is the thing I think everybody was looking forward to, is figuring out how recruiting will work in the new game, EA Sports College Bowl 25. It's something that I'll be honest, when that first screenshot came out on Monday night, my first thought was, what in the world is going on here? There was a lot of text, a lot of icons, a lot of graphics on one screen. After going through the blog kind of slowly and then matching up with the pictures from the video and just from the blog, I think I got it. But we're going to walk through this
Yeah.
and we'll find out how much I really do have it. And same for you as well, Tommy.
It's taken all of our brain power combined, plus scouring the internet for everybody else's brain power added in, to try to piece all this together. Because again, as much detail as they went into, there was still a lot more that they could have
Mhm.
covered and gone into more depth.
Mhm.
Not to fault them, because again, I wouldn't want to write 17,000 words on any subject. But yeah, long story short, there's still a lot to kind of piece together, and I think you and I have it kind of covered, but at the same time, we're probably going to be surprised by something once the game gets launched.
What's important is going to be your my school grades. We kind of had these back in NCAA football 14, the dynamic school pitches. Not all of them dynamic, but a good number of them are things you can influence, and we'll tell you why that's important later when it comes to recruiting. What's interesting here is you can go in and see your rating in these categories. Tommy and I talked pre-show, and we noticed this going through the blog and the video. Some of these they don't want you to see them. That's not apparently not important at this time. We're not really sure why. We kind of tracked it down to this one of the Stanford icon is where playing time would go. Here's playing style, and maybe that depends on once the roster is finalized, that would get you the playing time, playing style. Maybe they're waiting until the coordinators are hired. I'm just throwing out random ideas here. And the very last one at the bottom was proximity to home, and maybe that you wait till you actually have a player involved before that shows up.
Yeah, I'm hoping this isn't the final design because to me that's very confusing. Um, for the bottom one, they ought to have a home. I mean, they just have a
Mm,
little silhouette of a house or something like that. They could do better. Playing time is a clock, things like that.
mhm.
They could do better to kind of highlight those. Again, this may not be final. They may be those may be placeholder images or something like that, but definitely would make a lot more sense to kind of clear those up a little bit.
And I wonder if maybe did we get to the later screens, maybe it has icons, but just right now they just don't want to show it, so they just completely hide it. Tommy, you noticed this in the pre-show, and I'll be honest, I thought I noticed a lot of details. Didn't this year Prestige is not always a clean 1 through 5. Looks like there's some half stars in there as well. So if you were looking to start with a 1 star, now do you maybe classify with, well, okay, we'll go up to 1.5 stars.
Yeah, we'll give you that extra half
Yeah.
star.
when you go through the look at this screen, the my school grade is very important. It'll tell you how to improve it if you can, and players that are at risk of leaving with the to the deal breakers tells you about them as well. So it gives you an opportunity to kind of calm players down and also to improve your school. As we'll talk about later, if your deal breaker for a player is a certain category, if it falls below a certain level, they can decommit. That was one of the big features that I think didn't get mentioned out there. Academic prestige, for example, is one that they said they're going by what the U.S. World Report. That will not change. You cannot alter that. Championship contender. This is an interesting one. How does it improve? Well, you first need to master Bud Elliott's blue chip ratio, which is basically what percentage of your roster are 4 and 5 star recruits. So basically, recruit better. And current media poll rank, you want to be great in that. That's how you become a championship contender. And it tells you what players are. They must not view them, obviously, as a C minus. They came to your school thinking they'd win titles, and they realize they may not even win games. So they're not real happy, and they may want to leave. So it tells you, what you need to do. Now that's easier said than done because if it's recruiting, you're not going to have time to upgrade your roster that quickly, probably to satisfy these guys. So you better win games this season to at least climb up the media poll.
Yeah, it was, for sure. It's interesting, that they actually named Bud Elliott's
Mm,
blue chip ratio. So I mean
mm,
that it's kind of a call out. I saw him post on Twitter
mm,
that his son won't understand the importance of it today, but down the road maybe he will.
mm,
But yeah, it's definitely interesting to kind of pull in some real world scenarios like that. Obviously, they've got ESPN personalities,
mm.
but then now that's somebody from CBS there.
Here again, this is shown now Arizona State going through championship contender, players at risk. Also kind of shows you your rank nationally where you're at. And that's when you're looking at the dynamic ones, I think that's where it gets really interesting and fun to look at. Here we have a weekly advance screen, very similar to what we had back in the past. It tells you what happened during the week, so you know with recruiting where you need to go focus, or maybe to go look elsewhere if guys have locked you out or committed somewhere else.
Yeah, for sure. This again, we always had this in the past to kind of see what happened, but it's nice. Hopefully you can still revisit this even after you advance from away from the screen, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, you can kind of see a status of presumably all of your targets, or maybe it's just ones that had some activity specifically happen.
Here's the prospect list. This is probably the big thing people wanted to start. One of the big things people wanted to see for the first time is what's it going to look like. Kind of similar to the past in terms of basically a big spreadsheet, and you go through and you can sort by a lot of different categories. Tell me if you want to walk people through it, or is there anything new or noteworthy here? And there's the one thing that I think we talked about before the show was pretty interesting.
Yeah, the one that jumps out to me, again, like you said, a lot of this is very similar to the past, but the one that jumps out to me is the pipe. If you zoom in, you can see that those are numbered. So these are your pipeline ratings. In some other screenshots, it's hard to tell, but this one it seems to be pretty clear.
Mhm.
So it's based upon, how active you are for that particular region. So do you have good ratings in New Jersey or Michigan or wherever else it may be? Do you have a pipeline there? So obviously Michigan, they're going to have a pipeline into the state of Michigan. So that
Mhm.
that makes complete sense.
And what's interesting is pipelines this year are different than they were in the past. There are still 50 total. However, it's not just one per state. It is some of the states are divided into multiple. They mentioned there's Florida's into 3 regions. Atlanta is its own region, and the states of New York and New Jersey are now one region. So they went through and they looked at not only kind of the recruiting hotbeds, but they also went through and looked at where schools had success recruiting historically. So I don't know if they ever give us a full example of like a school's particular pipelines. Like you said, Michigan obviously in-state's probably going to be a pipeline. Other certain areas where they've been good at probably going to be a pipeline. And they also went in the blog mentioned that they kind of looked at the type of player coming from each place. So certain receivers, and I believe they mentioned in Florida, or might be a little shorter, but they're going to be faster than you might find maybe on the. I believe they say West Coast. They have more bigger receivers. Now that doesn't mean that
It's
got that backwards, or is that right?
No, you're right about Florida, but they said East Texas, so like
Oh,
kind of the
okay.
Dallas area, is going to have bigger,
Mm,
stronger receivers, and
mm,
quarterbacks from California are going to be more of your static pocket passers,
mm.
that kind of thing.
And they mentioned in here that each year in the recruiting pool, there's 3,500 high school players in the pool. Is that a misspeak, or does that mean we don't have JUCOs? I mean, they point out the class, but that also could be when you sort later, get the offseason and the portal shows up. Do we
No,
know other JUCO
I,
players? Do
I
you get
saw in some of the video that I captured screenshots from, it does show JUCOs, so
okay?
they do have JUCOs in there.
And one thing that nothing on the pipelines that's worth noting from what we can gather, and we talked about this quite extensively in the DMs earlier, it does not appear there's any dynamic element, meaning that if you go in and make your own pipeline per se and say that Florida was not a pipeline for you, and you go and you get a bunch of players out of Central Florida, it does not become a pipeline from what we can gather from the video or the blog. It sounds like it will stay for the whole 30 years of your dynasty. Whatever EA decided your school's pipelines were, that's going to be that way for the whole duration.
And actually, to that point, it's a little confusing. Like you said, it's going to stay that for the entirety. But from the blog, it says that that's tied to your school. But in some of the video, there's a creator coach, and it allows you to select your pipeline there as well. So is it tied to the school or tied to the coach, or somehow both? I
The
mean,
way
again, it's a little confusing for me.
the way I understand it, and like I said, this is all guesses. I mean, we got to be careful here. I think the coach one is you can set that. I think the big intent is so when the schools go to hire a coach, they try to get a coach who matches their pipelines. So I think that that's the kind of the string that will make a certain school be interested in you. But I would think also that if I'm a user and I'm making a coach, I may want to pick a pipeline that I want Central Florida to be a pipeline. So I'm going to pick that for my pipeline right off the bat, even if I haven't earned it or deserved it. I'm going to pick that. And we kind of joked before the show. Any good online dynasty should do is once we figure out the 50 pipelines, if you do a randomizer. So each coach kind of at the mercy of what the wheel says their pipeline is. Otherwise, everybody's going to pick the big regions, aren't they, for the most part? Or they're going to try to pick a pipeline that exists for their school they want to get to. So I would think a fun way would be to randomize it, but I'm sure a lot of people would not go for that.
Yeah, hopefully you don't get stuck with Hawaii, Alaska, and Washington as your pipeline. In theory, maybe they're grouped together or something. So,
But some people are good.
but
Some coaches are good at those areas. I mean, they do. Some schools very much do have coordinators that focus on those areas. But I see your point. It's usually when you have a staff of 10 plus, it's not when you have three.
yeah, again, it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out in the end.
Mm. Obviously, if you click on R3, kind of like the past, you can see your team needs. This is one of the few things menu-wise also kind of stood out to me. Uh, Giving them some credit or praise here. I will say I really do kind of like on the right here, like when you have the quarterbacks highlighted, it'll show you who's on the roster and give you some information about them. I really do like that a lot. In my opinion, and Tommy, you correct me if I'm off base here. I don't like that you can't see the entire offense on one screen. I believe in 14 you could. I don't remember having to scroll down a whole lot. It looks like there's multiple positions that you're not gonna be able to see here at one time. When it looks like I know they're probably following a template for the art design here. I really wish they could move this up because then I think theoretically at least you could see the entire offense on one screen. Because I know in real life, I guarantee every program has something like this to track it, and a lot of fans have things like this to track their favorite team. They're not scrolling down to see it. They have this big and visible.
For sure, yeah. There's a lot of real estate being taken up there at the top that
Mm,
should be able to condense that down and be able to use that better. But
mm,
yeah, to your point, I do like that menu on the right hand side.
mm,
It shows not only your people on your roster, but that as well you have two targets, plus potentially another page of targets. Because you have four targeted at quarterback. So yeah, you can page to the next one.
mm,
And so yeah, it shows how many you have as senior. So that's senior for this year, not senior for next year.
mm.
And then, do you have any needs? So it definitely is, gives you a much better picture and kind of you see that Schuster is the senior and he's graduating at the end of this year.
What's also worth noting is that the people with the 85 man rosters were trying to figure out, okay, I'm going to pick up this many quarterbacks and this many running backs. That's always going to be tied to your playbook. So certain playbooks have different requirements for roster size. So you are, I don't want to say tied down a little bit, but if you're in a run heavy, you're probably going to need to have more halfbacks and fullbacks than you may want to carry, for example.
Yeah, for sure. I like that it ties into now
Mm.
something that obviously they didn't really get into is will it tie into custom playbooks or is it based upon the playbook that you selected from the out of the box playbooks?
I believe it's wherever they consider that play style. I think, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah,
Like I
that's a
said,
good point.
they didn't really clarify.
They
That's
they
the way I
actually
took it.
said if they actually said something to the effect of unless you change your playbook.
Mm.
Um, so again, is it the playbook or is it play style or do they derive the play style from the playbook? Maybe it's kind of there.
One thing, the screenshot that we saw, the first look of recruiting, we were able to figure out that the in-game currency, right? Maybe that's or in-game unit for recruiting will be hours. Now, really see behind the scenes, it's all the same, whether it's hours or points or widgets or doodads. It's all the same thing. It's just, it sounds better because in real life, they talk about coaches and teams, how many hours they put into recruiting a player. So it does make a lot of sense. That's what you're going to be looking at. And that hour, if the way I understand it, Tommy, that will change based on what procedure your program. The example they gave was a 5-star program will get 1,000 hours and a 1-star program has 350. They try to want, I think they really want to make sure that the haves and have-nots, there is still a difference there. I think they want to keep the big boys big and the little guys small, not to discourage them, but that they want to make it realistic. They don't, the theme I'm getting from a lot of this is they want people to put the work in to build the programs up. They don't want anything handed to them.
For sure, yeah. And it makes sense. I mean, the bigger schools have more resources to where they can have a parking lot full of
Mm,
Lamborghinis sitting out there for recruits to come in and see or
right.
something like that. So, definitely, yeah, it makes sense in the end. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say they touched on it in the video or blog, probably the blog, that you can also increase that from coaching your coaching skills. So maybe if you're a master recruiter, then you can add in a couple hundred more hours or something like that. Again, that's a guess, but I'm assuming that that's something somewhere to be the case.
One thing I did see was that basically you get 50 hours per recruit, but if you have a certain ability, you can get up to 70. And also the team hours will be more in the preseason and off season, which makes sense because theoretically that's a bigger period of time versus 1 week. That number should be bigger. One thing I did notice, and I don't know if we have it on any of the screens here, but the screen that came out Tuesday night, it mentioned the hours and the different actions you could take. And the big thing that everybody talked about online was sending a DM to a recruit. And I noticed that took 10 hours. So that coach must be real
Yeah,
slow on
he's
his
really got
typing.
to.
I,
Yeah, yeah.
I laughed at that one. That's the one time where the hours thing doesn't match up. But
That and yeah,
you just view it as
there's
10,
some others.
consider it 10 points. It's just 10 points on that one. We don't view it as
Exactly.
hours because
Yeah,
otherwise you
yeah.
think this coach just must be a Luddite. He has no clue how to text a guy.
That or it's back and forth throughout the whole week, let's say.
Oh,
So,
that would make more sense if you view it that way. It's maybe a
yeah,
DM conversation than just sending
exactly.
him a
Yeah.
random.
Not a quick pick or anything like that.
Right. So it shows the deal breaker here is this brand exposure. You currently have an A+. You need to have at least a B-. Also shows your action summary, which is interesting. It tells you if you do these things, what happens to your influence. And Tommy, I'll be honest here. I missed it in the blog initially. Why are these different colors? And you corrected me, and I'll let you explain to people why this influence bar has two different colors on it for most of the
Yeah,
schools.
I was confused when I first saw it as well, but I believe it was in the blog that they covered it that maybe it was in the video, but long story short, that's how much has increased from the prior week. So the dark color is how much it has increased from just that prior week. So as you see, this recruit has heavily influenced from Notre Dame, whereas Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan just had a small jump.
And
Along with that,
it's
as you can see, his overall countdown from 10 to 8 to 5 has also increased. So he's getting closer to his top three. With that big of a jump in 1 week, it's possible that next week he is now in his top three.
You believe, is that correct that it's based on activity? The more things that go on here, the quicker it goes up, or is that
I'm sure
tied to
it's
something else?
activity and, probably driven by individual players. They want to sign, some players want to sign faster than the others or something like that. Um, and then, yeah, how much success you have and how much that aligns up to who's recruiting them.
I believe this to be the preseason recruiting screen. And here, what you can do is you can only scout and offer. When you start, and Tommy, correct me if I'm wrong here, you kind of showed this at least to me earlier. When you start recruiting, it's 10 hours per. You know nothing. And the development trade is hidden until signing day unless you have a certain ability, I believe the mind reader ability. Preseason board here. One thing that's interesting is we're in the preseason, and G. Durant already has verbally committed to North Carolina. So the first thing I asked you was, does this mean insta commits are in? And I think the answer is yes, but we got to remember they still can decommit if your deal breaker falls short. So yes, they may be on board with you, but it doesn't has not locked them in.
Yeah, in theory, and then as well, I'm sure that's a skill that you have to unlock with your coaching tree. So yeah, that assuming that that is the case.
So when you do your first scouting, or at least do some of it. You ideally want to get to the number rating. That's the end goal. But if you haven't, let's say, I believe they call this partially or mostly scouted, it gives you a range to kind of let you know where the number is. It could be on the low end, it could be on the high end of the yellow. And let me zoom in here and make some, maybe that'll help viewers a little bit. So, granted, this guy with his short route could be phenomenal or it could be just good. And obviously, when you keep doing your scouting a little bit more, you end up getting the final number for all those categories, all the attributes.
And
Uh,
what's interesting, something that I just put together just now, but kind of we were looking at this earlier. Um, a the amount that you unlock from a player is different based upon presumably coach skills or something like that. Because in the video, it goes 40, 80, 100, whereas here it goes, 60, 100. So again, if you're a better recruiter, then you can or a better scout or something like that, then you can unlock more for each scout attempt. The other thing
mm,
that at least the video highlights or suggests rather is that you can scout a player fully all within the same week. Obviously, it takes points each time you scout them, but
mm,
in the video, it shows that presumably all in the same week, they've unlocked the all of the details of one particular player by giving him 30 points
mm.
during that event.
Okay, correct me here. I believe that means they consider him a bust, but even the blog mentions that just as somebody's a five-star bust, they're still a really good player. They're probably more like a four-star. I mean, so he's still a good player, but he's not living up to the five-star, at least at the start. And this is the deal breaker icon, and I've seen it different colors in different spots. Does this mean that he has a deal breaker and you're good with it? Or does this mean it's a deal breaker and you're bad at it? Does that make sense when I'm asking? Because it's not, there's a lot of reliance on icons here. And I'm
Yeah, I
not sure I fully
agree.
understand that part yet.
I don't think I think it means there is a deal breaker, but because he's not in the top three, you're not locked out, maybe. I'm not sure of that though.
That's where I draw there are other spots I noticed. I don't know if it's the blog or video, but it's different colors and it's not universal. Like sometimes I think it's grayed out. I think there's one time I saw it in red in different areas on the screen. That's what gets me.
Yeah, and these may all be at different stages of development, so it's hard to really say.
Mhm.
And as well, some of these may actually be mocked up screenshots. Who's to know? But at the same time, obviously, it's going to be very close to this in the final product. Like I mentioned earlier, the scouting you can unlock all of a scouting attributes in 1 week. I guess the question is that a good thing or a bad thing? To me, that's kind of a bad thing because in real life, you're not going to learn everything about a player in the preseason. You're going to have to watch film and go to camps and things like that, to where it's going to take time to be able to actually unlock all of that information.
Let me counter that by saying, just playing devil's advocate here. One, you could say, well, we've spent 30 hours on this guy. That's equivalent of spaced out over a certain amount of time. And if this is before, obviously, his senior year, could you at least convince yourself? And I don't think it's the game design reason. Could you convince yourself you did all your scouting during his junior year and you did it early, even though it's not really what's going on? Could you at least fool yourself or, tell yourself to make it seem realistic that that might be the case?
Yeah, I mean, there's two different sides of it. There's the
Mm,
realism side, like you said,
right.
can you kind of argue one way or the other? The other side is the game factor. Do you think it's enjoyable that everyone can unlock all the scouting for, let's say you've got 1,000 points, or let's say you've got
Mhm.
900 points, you can unlock the scouting for 30 players.
Right. And
Now,
that you're right.
you can't talk to them otherwise, but you know, in theory, you could still scout your highest priority players and see all that before you start talking to them.
You'd have a huge leg up. I got to think most people will do that, or at least they'll spend a half or significant portion of their hours scouting. And they're not going to baby that because you want to know. That's always the thing from the past as well. You want to know if they a gem or a bust. You kind of want to get an idea of them so you don't waste your time later on. So
For
I think
sure.
you're
And then as
you're right.
well, I mean, you could just throw 10 hours to him and just get that initial range to see what it looks like. And does he fall in there? And if so, then yeah, I'll give him a little bit more.
And the recruiting this year is called stage recruiting, and that the scouting is kind of the discovery is kind of under stage, the start of stage one. It talks about ideal pitch, and there are three motivations that tie into an ideal pitch. And what throws me for a loop is when they call it ideal pitch, I want to think one, not ideal pitch is, but they have three motivations. So that's what, when I read the blog, took me a little bit to finally grasp. I got to remember that the ideal pitch consists of a combination of three. Am I viewing it the right way?
You're correct. I don't know if they have a screenshot of it in the blog. It's in the video though, but the
Mm,
pitch is, for example, there's a one pitch that's called Student of the Game, and that focuses on three motivations: the academic prestige, coach prestige, and
mm,
proximity to home. So again, it's kind of a pitch saying, hey, we know that you care about academics. Here's where we're good at. And so, yeah, you would find the pitch that has the three attributes that you're best in. So you're not going to be able to say, "Hey, I know you care about studies and you want to go to the NFL and whatever else." They kind of have to line up together based upon how you're recruiting.
Kind of like the screenshot here. Like if you do the workhorse pitch, so basically you would want to. I'm walking myself through this as well as the community here. The way I understand it is you can add an action. Is that correct? I mean, we're in here, we're doing a pitch,
Yeah,
and
yep,
the
I think
workhorse
so.
pitch, the ideal pitch, like as we mentioned, the ideal pitch always contains three motivations, and it happens to line up that the workhorse pitch, ideal pitch, lines up with three things you're very strong in and that they have an interest in. Am I reading
Exactly.
this all correctly in your opinion at least?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and if based upon screenshots and things, they're only going to have three higher interests that they're going to be. So again, in this case, it lines up perfectly, but you may only match one or two of their interests based upon what you're trying to pitch or what your school is good at.
And one of the pictures I noticed on the screenshot that came out on Tuesday night, it was a UCF recruiting board, but they had the SEC conference logo, and I believe they had used custom conference and moved UCF to the SEC. That's what threw me for a big loop on Tuesday. But then when the blog and video came out on Wednesday, excuse me, on Monday night, then on Tuesday I realized no, they had moved UCF. That's why it didn't make any sense, to be honest with you, initially. Some of the things you can do to kind of, I believe this helps your influence, which moves the meter up when you have the team meters we saw earlier. Search social media, DM the player, contact friends and family, send the house, soft sell, hard sell, different pitches. I mean, there's a lot going on here. I think this is the point where when I stop to think about it, it makes sense once I read a 17,000 word blog and see a 6-minute video. Is this something the average person will understand off the bat? And I don't mean that to be insulting because I know I'll have a little learning curve once I get retail, but it seems like a lot. But am I understanding this correctly? But you add actions, you do it here.
Yeah, exactly. So as I understand it, you add actions, so search social media or whatever, DM the player. Um, and then those get added to the left-hand side, and those stay from week to week. So you don't have to go
Yeah.
back in and reset those every week, but if you want to
Mm.
change them each week, you can. So yeah, that's kind of the actions that you're taking for that recruit, but you can add all the ones on the right-hand side that are unlocked and available for you.
So, and as you mentioned, once you put them on here, you don't have to go in every week and do it. I think that's one of the, like you mentioned, streamlining or kind of automating things. Basically, it will stay there until you get locked out, they commit, or until you go in and change it. So there is a little bit, you don't have to go in every week, but I can very much see myself that first few weeks going in every time just to try to remember what I did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, how much have I committed to this guy, and do I really care about him anymore?
Right. Tommy, I know soft shell tacos and hard shell tacos. What's soft sell and hard sell in pitches?
So as I understand it, soft sell is basically that you're not 100% sure that you line up to that recruit. Maybe that's where we saw the pitches earlier. I don't recall. We didn't really get clarification on that. I don't think. But basically, if you don't line up very well, you can soft sell
Mhm.
and the negatives won't impact you as much. You'll still get a boost from the positives, but the negatives won't hurt you. Whereas with hard sell, if you have a bunch of negatives and you try to pitch that, then that's going to hurt you a lot and hurt you even more. So,
So if you know
uh,
the ideal pitch, that's the time to hard sell.
exactly. Yeah. Which
Did you
again, you
get?
have to kind of unlock that. So yeah, that is actually pitch. If you notice, it's in the
Yep.
pitch section there. Now that I see that, so you have to use the events above that to kind of unlock what pitches they're interested in because you don't know at the start.
Hmm.
And then once you know, if you know all three, and you line up to those, then you just go ahead and hard sell. If you are still trying to feel him out and figure out where what his pitches are, then you can soft sell and at least get a little bit of a boost and not get hurt too bad.
And I'm gonna read what they wrote about Sway. I understand it, but it's one of those I think I need to see it in action. Basically, it says if you don't have a match with the school or in this case with the player with your ideal pitch, you can sway them, and that will basically you're able to. The way I understand it and infer it is you're basically talk them into a different ideal pitch, the one that you match up with, because it'll be unique only to you. The way I understand it, and maybe I'm wrong here, is that you and I are going after the same player. If I sway them, that unique pitch will work for me, but it doesn't mean that it would work for you. And it also says in there, if you get the second one, it may also create a third one. So that's one of the, I think I understand it. I don't think I could teach a class on it though. I think I need to see it in action first.
For sure. Yeah. Again, there's a lot to learn once we get our hands on
Mhm.
the game. But yeah, that it's the general concept is there. I just don't know any of the specifics.
It also shows here activities in terms of when you schedule a visit, you can pick where you want them to come, what game you want them to come in at.
The interesting thing here, this is the first I've seen them, the active action starter and TV
hmm
time.
I'm just
So
gonna
are
say that
they
it's a pitch. There's the TV, and wasn't the starter
okay?
a
Yeah. So
star icon?
they're
Oh,
hard selling
there
the
we go.
yeah, yep. So yeah, they're hard selling the workhorse for this one. If you zoom back out, you can see the workhorse icon on the left-hand side. Or is that the or no, it's a megaphone of some kind. Um, maybe they haven't selected that one yet.
Yeah, I think they just have it
But yeah,
highlighted.
like you said in the other one, they've already selected the TV and the star icon, the starter icon. So
A slight Easter egg here came out on social media earlier that the FCS schools, at least some of them, I'm gonna guess all of them, are based on previous popular YouTube series from NCAA Football 14. Here it shows the difference between bring if you bring a visit in for that FCS school, you can only really lose from it. You're not going to get much of an advantage from it. Whereas if you bring them in for a rivalry game for Auburn at Alabama, a win helps you, a loss still really crushes you. Wow, kind of harsh, lower tier opponent in rivalry game. I guess Alabama's really looking
I
down on Auburn in this one.
I think that's the menu slow loading there or something like that
Oh,
because it going from FCS to Auburn, that they probably captured it too fast. Because I noticed the same thing in the video. But yeah, it's yeah, I'm sure that they wouldn't have that same comment for Auburn and Alabama, but
well, you never know.
uh never know, yeah. But then as well, returning is the complimentary and competitive visits. So again, if you are recruiting a quarterback and you also include receivers on the same visit, then you're going to get boosts from there as well.
And maybe you can only have four visits at a time. Four recruits per week they can come during a bye or a home game. Do a visit, you got to be in their top five, and they must have a scholarship offer. And the 40 hours on this, I believe for the scheduled visit, that does not count towards your max hours. So you can still put 50 hours on this guy, if I understood the blog correctly. There's a lot
Yeah,
going on here, but I think that's correct.
yeah, I understood the same thing. It comes from your bucket of hours, but it doesn't come from the max on that particular recruit.
Right, right. There's also what they call game day stakes, and I believe that's what we were talking about over here. Basically, that's what you get if you win or if you lose. You mentioned the visits. And when you bring them in, you can pick from 14 different activities to pick while they're on their visit. Here's the 14 things you can bring them in for. One, for example, a position meeting. The big thing being if that will help you with playing time, which I believe they're saying is an interest of theirs, and you get a boost for doing that.
Yeah,
So,
so far the only things we know about the player are those three uh motivations that they have,
mm,
and thankfully we match up to playing time and it's one of their key interests. So yeah, have him come attend a position meeting. So it's definitely interesting how this works because in the past you would just invite him to a game, but now you have
mm.
to invite him and also kind of line up to what his motivation is.
Do we know, and I think it's very early, I don't think anything, do we know what the best time to offer is? Is it best to really
It
offer early, late, mid? Is there a time? Do we know yet?
I mean, the blog kind of talks about that, but I think it goes back to NCAA 14. You've got to kind of be competitive on when you do that. If you do it too early,
Mhm.
then, he may visit somebody after you that they like better or something like that. But if you wait till late, then they may sign the dotted line before you get a chance to have them come in for a visit.
I would say this visit part is part of what they call stage three of the stage recruiting. It's closing the deal. And here it worked apparently. I like this graphic for the most part. It's something you can put on social media to brag. I can send it to you, Tommy, that I signed this, got this guy committed, that you didn't get him. I I understand it very much seems like they're trying to mimic or copy like what Hayes Fawcett from On 3 does when he puts out those special team graphics of the players. Part of me wishes they would have put like the national and position and state rank here, but I understand also why they didn't. But at the same time, I personally wish they would have just for a little more. Like if I take a screenshot and want to remember it or save it somewhere on like on a forum on social media, and I get several seasons down the line, I can still remember, oh yeah, he was the top safety in the country, and I got him. versus 4-star, you don't know how good he were truly ranked by the recruiting service in the game.
Yeah. And you kind of mentioned earlier that this is tailor made for sharing somewhere on social media. Capture a screenshot and text it to your buddy or something like that.
Imagine getting that text. Like
Yeah,
you're at
exactly.
home, you
Yeah.
think I'm going to play in an hour, and you
Yeah.
get a text. Oh, what now? What is it now? Is it work? Is it somebody? Is it the spouse? Or is it the girlfriend? Or maybe both of them? No, it's your buddy bragging that he just got a commitment for the same recruit you wanted.
And now all of a sudden I've got to buy a brand new cell phone because I threw it across the room. So no. But yeah, I would be curious if like you said, this is kind of tailor made for sharing that image. So do they automatically somehow save it to your console so that you could easily, like for example, the PlayStation app, you can pull images from your console and send them out as a text or something like that. So again, that to me that's kind of a nice feature if they would somehow make that easily available.
Another thing, there's a lot of the use of the secondary logos of the schools here. They got the text logo on the foam finger and the A with the elephant behind it. So it's one of those that we noticed that kind of on the loading screen or on the team select, they had some older logos for schools. So I think that's a good use of bringing those in as a pretty good look.
For sure,
Uh,
yeah. I mean, a lot of schools have, different logos that they
mm,
don't use very often, but at the same time, it's nice to have a little bit of a throwback
mm.
to those.
One thing that's worth noting, and people noticed this in the screenshot that came out Monday night, we saw the UCF recruiting board, and for several players, it said verbally committed. So instantly, the community began to wonder, okay, does that mean there's decommits? Can I sway a guy? How does this work exactly? Yes, there are decommits, and it's not necessarily a result of another school coming in to steal them. It sounds like it comes down to these deal breakers. There's just certain things that if you don't deliver, and if you can't keep your school highly ranked in those areas, in those dynamic pitches we talked about at the start of this. Let's say you drop in championship contender, you have a big losing skid, you drop your championship contender level rank drops, and that was important to the player. He can decommit. The one thing I have not heard, I mean, we have guesses, but I have not heard if they can be swayed back. Let's say you get back on a start the year on a losing streak, player drops, you decommits. If let's say you reel off 4 wins, maybe ranked wins in a row, can you go back and get them, or is the bridge burned? That part we don't know.
Yeah, I would assume, I mean, in real life, technically you can still re-sign somebody after they have decommitted for UMU. So I think, yeah, as long as you get back in their good graces, the only question is, do you have enough time? Has somebody else picked up
Mhm.
on them and putting the pressure on before you get a chance to kind of catch back up?
Yeah,
So
I would think you would if you dropped, you'd only go to here, but I don't know. Maybe the game we don't know. There's another one of those details.
yeah, yeah.
They didn't go deep enough. 17,000 words
Yeah,
was not
they've got
deep
to give
enough,
us
EA.
more.
Yeah, you got to quit
Yeah.
skimming. You got to give us the real information here. Then they kind of go through how the off-season structure works. And a lot of this is very similar to NCAA Football 14 and previous titles. You get to the end of the year, it tells you where players are going, your chance to be able to kind of persuade them to come back. Again, on the right side, there's times where this is great, times where it's not. Here, I think it's good to kind of look at how they've done. We don't know what going right on that means. Maybe it gives you the player stats, or maybe it gives you ratings that we're a little bit unclear of. Obviously, here, pro draft, we had that in the past. The new one, granted, we had transfers in the past, but it was usually low rated players and you had no say who comes in. But here, you find out we've reached the end of the year and you have two players, and one of them decently rated, an 82 rated overall junior right outside linebacker, wants to leave. Tommy, what are you going to do?
I'm gonna pitch him. I want him to come back because I can use him somewhere for sure.
And the big thing they mentioned is just like the decommits with the deal breaker. It's the same here. The deal breaker, I gathered from the blog, is kind of the deciding factor, the primary factor that if you fail on one of the deal breakers, they could leave. And one of the quotes or one of the lines in there I thought was interesting. The higher overall the player is that you break a deal breaker with, the better chance they have to leave. So apparently, I'm going to guess playing time is maybe an exception because I got to think a younger guy, if the deal breaker is playing time, he's leaving even if he has a lower overall. I can't imagine that, but I can understand for championship contender. Obviously, it would make sense the higher overall would leave to want to get out of there, which is very much how it works in real life. The players want to get a ring somewhere, so you see players go from the medium to small schools to, a top 10 program.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, this does, like you said, kind of lines up more to real life than what we had in the past. One other thing to highlight there is that his deal breaker during original recruitment remains his deal breaker once he gets to the school. So it's not like
Mm,
something that you can sway his deal breaker to be something else after you've got him on campus. It's
mm.
once he's there, you better stick to what you basically what you promised.
And what's interesting is, like you said, deal breaker always stays the same for the entire length that player exists in the dynasty or in the world of EA Sports College Football. What does change is their ideal pitch. That will change between when they're a high school recruit and when they once they get to the portal that will change. I think part of that is probably so you don't remember what it was. So that way you just can't you know the right things to spam or the right players to go after. Here's the first look, and we saw this today. The first look at the portal. I kind of wish we had some fancy graphics when it went into the portal. It looks like just going to be a tab, unfortunately. I wanted like that Dr. Pepper portal with the quarterback going
Yeah,
through.
exactly.
We're not going to
The
get it.
warps. Yeah, yeah.
But it's interesting right off the bat. The deal breaker is shown here. For him, it's championship contender. You have a B plus. You need to have at least a B minus. Uh, Tell me if I'm wrong here. The way I understood the blog was that it will take their ratings, or I think overall, and it will convert it to a star rating equivalent to what the high school players have. So can we not see their stats? Can we not see their ratings? I mean, how is this? Do we know this? Maybe I overlooked it. Can you not scout them? How does this? We know we have an abbreviated window. Are they hiding some stuff? I mean, I know it's 20 questions, Tommy. Give me all the answers
Yeah,
right now.
but no, honestly, it's a good question because are you going to have to scout them in the off season, or if that's the case, then you wouldn't see their overall in during the regular season. You couldn't like pre-scout them, ahead of the
Mhm.
the transfer portal or something like that, and then hope they fall into your lap. So yeah, my guess is that you do see their most, if not all, of their ratings, and then you have to try to. Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know how that would work because I thought everything was kind of the same way, but maybe just you don't have to scout.
Yeah, yeah, I'm very confused. I can see why they would have it different ways. If somebody told me one answer, I could understand. Let's say, for example, they may not want to give ratings because maybe they're trying to give the perception of a guy leaves a school, he may not be the same player. He is not always, the grass greener on the other side. Maybe he goes somewhere and he's just not the same player. But at the
Or it could be that you see their overall or their ratings, but you don't know their uh
development trait.
yeah, exactly. It may be that you see their overall ratings and things like that, but you don't see their development trait until you've actually signed them on campus. So like even if you go out and look at all rosters, you won't see anybody else's development trait until they're on your team. I think Madden works the same way, actually.
What's interesting is the class, they have him as a transfer sophomore. I think that was interesting. Uh, Now, is this when he was in high school, or is this currently, or is this among the combination high school transfer pool where he's the 28th best tight end, second tight end out of his state, and fourth at the position nationally? Or do we?
My 100% guess would be it's based upon the portal. Because if you look in the left-hand column, the rank, all of those, obviously they're not in order, but all of those kind of are all unique. So it's like his rank is 28 overall nationally, and that's probably the 28th
Mm,
best transfer available. That's something we talked about earlier. Those on the left-hand side, the icons on the left,
hmm.
it's
Is
if
that
it's
interested
green,
in
then
you?
they're interested in you. Yeah, there's the
Oh, you're right.
green circle, there's the deal breaker, I think, if I remember correctly, and then just
Mm.
kind of a blank if they don't have either. So like if you're not in their top 10 or anything like that.
So
So
they really love
uh
OU. Maybe I read it wrong. I took it the wrong way. It wasn't that OU was after all these guys. These guys are all after OU. I guess I had that
Exactly. Yeah.
backward.
Yeah.
There's a lot
They're
going on
in
here.
their list, which, as you notice, and this is something that EA touched on the blog, they've got filters in the top right hand corner. And right now it's
Mm.
on the recommended filter, which it does based upon how they think that you line up to all of these particular players. So that's why these all line up to him because they're already interested in him or in this school rather. So it's something that in theory, these are going to be the ones that you have the best chance of signing. At the same time, obviously, the interest level, they're still fourth, fifth, and sixth on a lot of these. So, again, it's not guaranteed that just because they're in recommended doesn't mean that you're going to sign them.
If you look here, there's more we can scroll to. You can kind of see the start of something else. I have no clue what that is or says. This is one of those times I wish you could like push in R3 and it minimizes or drops this window and this expands because I would. Would love to know what that is. There's at least one or
Yeah,
two more columns over here. We have no clue what they are.
yeah. If you notice, there's scroll bars on the right hand side, but then also on the bottom as well that show that
Yeah.
there's more to scroll to. So yeah, there's at least a couple more columns over there to the right, probably.
Mm. I think it's kind of those when we zoomed in. I tried to show it. There's at least two more things here as well you can zoom in on or go through on whatever that pertinent information is, which we don't know. The portal will open at the start of off-season recruiting. It's 4 weeks, ends on National Signing Day. 4 and 5 star players will only consider about 5 schools, and they're open to about three for the rest. The player will be given a star rating based on their overall.
Something that we kind of touched on earlier is that you can have commitments during the season, but again, they cannot actually sign their national letter of intent until I think it was the week before bowl games, or like the conference championship week or
The
something
start of
like
bowl
that.
season is early signing day, and the national signing day is 7 weeks after national championship. So that lines up with the December 1 and early February signing day.
Yeah, yeah. So again, you've got to continue to recruit even those soft commits throughout the rest of the season until they actually sign and are on your team.
Now, do you continue to recruit or just recruit them if they decommit? Do we know that for
That's a good
sure?
question. I guess I'm guessing you should continue to recruit if you're in a battle with another school. Now, if you've got a big lead and nobody else is even targeting him, then you just don't give him any attention. But otherwise, yeah, you still need to give him some attention each week.
And they did mention that most players will sign during that early signing day, which matches real life. And here, kind of a cool graphic. Like if you want to put that also on social media to taunt your friend, I wish that that would be, and maybe this is a work in progress, but that is the smallest signature on a contract or a line I think I may have ever seen.
For sure. Yeah, yeah. If you're not going to share the signature on social media and be able to know who it is.
No, yeah, that's not a good look. What's interesting, this is something in NCAA football 14 and almost every version of NCAA football. Any unsigned recruits will become walk-ons. They just don't disappear as the blog says into the ether, which is what a lot of us said. We always had to make up a story that he went to FCS or didn't have the
He didn't have the
grades or
grades. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
or something happened that he changed his mind and decided not to play football. But now I think they realized that was a big complaint or concern from the community in the past. So they will become, if I'm understanding this correctly, basically, if you are the leader, but they have not committed, they will become a walk-on. Maybe not for you,
Yeah,
but at least for the
that's
other schools. I mean,
basically at the end of recruiting. If nobody has signed them, then they'll go to the top one at the end at the whoever reached the top on their recruiting list.
which is most likely the computer. I hate to say that, unless a player doesn't get a full class or have a full 85, because I would assume then they,
Or
am
they
I wrong
pick
in assuming they wouldn't make
that.
it?
That's a good question. I mean, maybe you only found the guy at the last minute on the last week and you throw him some points and he just happens to be the top one at that point. But like you said, though, I'm curious if you're already at 85, are you still going to get him to sign as a walk-on and then have to cut him or something like that? And then he disappears into the ether.
Right. And it is worth noting also with the portal, you can push guys to the portal when you get to, it sounds like when you get to the cut screen, you can say you're going to go pro in something other than sports. And so you can push those low tier guys out. Now,
Yeah, I
if
think
they go anywhere, who knows? But they will go at least go to the portal. Now, we don't know does every what happens to all these portal guys because in real life, a lot of portal guys disappear. So are they the new, unsigned recruits from NCAA football 14? What happens to granted, we don't know how many players are in the portal, but the lower tier portal guys, or is that why it's designed with a higher overall and more likely to leave?
uh,
I'm just spitting out
yeah.
things here that come to mind.
I mean, again, the real world story that lines up is that every year there are guys that go into the portal and leave their school and never get to sign anywhere else.
Mm.
So either they have to go to a Division 2 or something else like
Or they
that. So
retire.
or they retire. Yeah, exactly. So that story kind of lines up that if there's people left over in the transfer portal, that then they disappear into the ether.
There's also position changes, and I believe that in my mind, the blog description made it sound like it's very much like NCAA 14. I don't think there's any real big difference there. Do we know in the
It
recruiting pool, are there multi-position athletes? I get the impression there are, but they
yeah,
never really spell it out.
No, there definitely are. Some of the positions listed are legitimately ATH for athletes. So definitely, just like in the past, NCAA 14, you had athletes that uh, presumably are good at several different skills. And so, yeah, I'm curious how that'll work in the scouting because, again,
Hmm.
scouting, you're not seeing every single rating for them.
Right.
So I'll be curious how exactly that works. Do you have to scout them more than a regular athlete or regular position rather? But yeah, to your point, the changing their position is all done in the off season. It's done just before the preseason, just like in the past. The only difference here is it sounded like that it's kind of a spreadsheet of what positions they may also be good at.
Hmm.
So again, if you have an athlete, then it may show them three or four positions that they could play. Or if you have a running back, it may show them that they also could be a good slot receiver or something like that.
When you get to the end of the offseason, you also can view the top recruiting class. And I thought what's really cool is that well, one, right off the bat, I like this seeing like the top recruits for each school, like top five recruits. I think that's a really nice touch and use of this side panel. But you can also sort it not only by overall, but by high school and then portal. So you can see who the real portal king is. If you're the next Lane Kiffin, or if maybe you're a high school guy and you can be the next Dabo, where you just stick mainly with high school guys, you can sort it by that as well. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and then as well on the left-hand side it says national, so presumably you can filter it to only see certain conferences or certain
That's
states or something like that.
I assume conferences. It was my assumption.
That makes more sense. Yeah.
And you can see you can sign up to 35 players. And it looked like a lot of these big schools basically got close to that number.
Yeah, obviously with the transfer portal, you're going to have more people coming and going. So, you may sign 35, but you may have lost 40, between
Mhm.
graduation and transfers and things like that.
Next up is player progression. First of all, I like this screen. I think some with the jersey and uniform makes it looks pretty lifelike there. I mean, it looks like he's green screened, but I mean, it very much looks like it's pretty realistic. Player progression, the way I understand it, and Tommy, you correct me if I read the blog wrong. A lot of it's will auto progress the attributes and physical abilities. I mean, there's some user control. I mean, that's where the blog kind of gets me is that in some mentions it talks about auto and other, it looks like you can very much do yourself. And this is where we talked about at the start of the show. Here we have, I guess before it was a round C, and here you get the diamond S for skill points.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely like you have a bucket of points. Now, whether that's per player or a total for the entire team, or I'm assuming per player. But yeah, you have to spend points to upgrade their certain attributes. So in this case, if you give him points in power, then his toughness, injury, strength, jumping, stiff arm, and trucking, all of those will progress to some level. Now, do they all progress evenly? I don't think so, if I understood correctly. But at the same time, you basically put points into a category attribute, I guess,
Mhm.
and then that will increase individual ratings within that category.
And one thing to mention is that in season, it's based on on-field performance, but the bulk of it will come in the off season. I suppose that's to replicate, training or development, basically off-season training.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, the general consent is that from freshman to sophomore is always the biggest improvement from year to year in real world. So in theory, the same thing.
Here's a look at Quinshawn Judkins' physical and mental abilities. These are things we kind of learned about with the gameplay blog a little bit, and you can obviously go up certain tiers on all of these. The mental ones that you cannot, I believe they never change, whereas physical, I believe you can add them or they can show up. Am I understanding that correctly? If you're not born with the mental, you just don't have it. I think they're trying
Yeah, exactly. And
to.
presumably you can't increase them either. So I would think, I mean, headstrong, of course, yeah, that makes sense. But fan favorite, is that they are determined to be a fan favorite? That's their mental aspect, and if they're not, then they suffer. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, mental cannot be changed, whereas the others can be changed based upon how you increase their ratings. But those are tied, basically, the tiers are tied to what their rating are. So and in fact, this screenshot, if you zoom in on the left-hand side, it shows that in order to get platinum shifty, then you have to have at least a 97 change of direction. So it shows you if you're trying to reach a certain tier on a certain area, this is what you need to do to get to there. So in theory, sidestep is it's available. You could upgrade it with to platinum. Now maybe that requires additional points to be able to do that or something like that.
Early on one of the recruiting, when you can unlock through scouting, we had all those different traits, and in the lower right was the development trait, which you will not get until signing day, or if you have, I believe, the mind reader ability for your coach. What's worth noting in the blog, there are four player development traits. Normal is the most common. It progresses at a standard rate. Impact, the player type of player that can really change a team. They'll progress a little faster than normal with higher upside. Star, potential NFL player, few of these to go around. They'll step themselves as fast learners, which to me implies that those will be like the freshmen and sophomores that emerge. Elite, the best of the best. These players will make a statement the moment they get on campus and have the potential to be an all-time great. So I wonder if some of the top freshmen in this year's class are coming in, maybe a handful of them have this elite development. Maybe a Dylan Raiola from Nebraska, maybe a DJ Lagway out of Florida. Be interested to see what EA gives them in terms of their development trait.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting to see how that works. The other thing of this, correct me if I'm wrong, it doesn't really say can you influence that as they go throughout their career. Like, for example, when they become a sophomore, now they have they understand the game better so they can progress faster or something like that. Madden kind of has that mechanic to where you can increase their rate at which they progress. I'd be curious if there's any way to influence these, whether through coaching skills or giving points to the player or something like that.
Another thing worth interesting on the screenshot, they mentioned impact players. You will have a minimum of one impact player on offense and one on defense. There's also is no limit, and that's what the point they're trying to get across here on Alabama. They have one impact player on defense. On offense, Georgia with seven of them on the field. So if you do a great job recruiting and developing, you can have all the stars you want, and that's pretty intimidating. But you play in Super Bowl a lot, and you'll see three, and all of a sudden now you go out and theoretically can see seven or more or whatever, and you're like,
I mean,
wow,
you
this
could
is a
have
really good
all
team.
11 on the field in theory.
Yeah, that's kind of intimidating. The first time you go up and especially imagine going in online dynasty against somebody you don't really know that well, or they haven't been sharing their team update with you. And then you go in the field
Yeah,
the
for
first time
sure.
and they're all 11 with stars underneath. Hello. I thought this was interesting. A good look at the wear and tear system. It applies, and this is interesting. It will apply to on the field play and also Super Sim. So I think that's confirmation that Super Sim back in the game. We had not heard that for sure. What's interesting is it gives you the body part and also the impact you have.
Again, this is a small wear and tear based upon the level at the bottom, but at the same time, you're still losing quite a bit. So does that mean the stacked break tackle, they're actually losing 10 break tackle because the foot, leg, and shoulder all add up to 10 break tackle? Or is it just the highest one? So
That's a good
four break
question.
tackle? I mean, if he's got all of this going on, then in theory,
You better sit
he's going to
him.
be a lot less. Yeah, you're going to want to send him. He's going to be a lot less effective
I
in
say,
theory.
yeah, between if that is right, where it stacks, if it's negative 10 break tackle and plus that increased risk of injury, you better hope you're playing Indiana that week and you can rest him. Versus
Yeah,
if you're
for
playing
sure.
Ohio State, he's playing. But even then, you might want to minimize his carries.
Yeah, exactly. You want to load balance a little bit better.
One last thing with the wear and tear. The blog mentions they will recover to a minimum level when you advance the week. So basically, it must be, and I don't know the numbers, so I'm just going to exaggerate and hope it's in the realm of possibility. Like if all the dings drop them just massively, like say do a 50 overall or something, there must be some minimum they go back to, whether like 60, 65. But basically, meaning they drop a lot when you advance the week, they will go up to a certain threshold. They will not. It will be possible to get them back healthy. I think is what they're trying to imply with that.
Yeah, I would think so as well. Again, though, the idea probably is only related to if you're not overworking them. I mean, if they've got
Mhm.
severe injuries and you still give him 30 carries in a game, then, there's no reason for him to drop. Eventually, he's probably going to break down and actually have a true injury that's going to hold him
Mhm.
out or something.
Big feature. One of the first things they mentioned in this video, the 12 team playoff. Fans are going to see it in the game before they get to see it in real life. Starting in November, you'll get to see the potential matchups. And we do know from the Sights and Sound blog that the play call screen in that one of the windows, as you're trying to make your play call and you're trying to do everything else, you may get an update on potential playoff brackets and matchups. And also will show up in the rankings tab. You get to see where the college football playoff rankings is. That's where that will be.
Leave it to NC State to get the number one ranking and then lose by 40 in the first round. So that's definitely true to form.
I didn't even notice that till you said that. Here's a look at the college football playoff rankings. Like they said, that will start showing up in November. I believe in real life, that's what, week 8 when that happens. And they say they have all the rules and classifications in. Like if you're not in a conference, you can't get a first round bye.
Yeah, and in fact, actually, in that previous screenshot, it has asterisks beside each of the conference champions. So if you kind of zoom around and scroll around a little bit, you can kind of see, for example, Rice is a conference champion, so that's why they're there, and then Texas Tech, and then all of the first round buys would be conference champions.
Here's a look at the rankings at the end of the season. I guess that's your pop up that you finally made it. Why is
Yeah, I
it
guess that's kind of the replacement for the unveiling when
of the
they
bowl
unveil
bit?
they see all the players in the background and everything like that. So
And it sounds like it rotates among the 10 locations. I don't know if you caught that in the blog.
yeah, and one thing to point out, EA actually went to the college football playoff committee, and kind of learned from them, whether that was probably a media event or something like that.
Mhm.
But they actually went to to the actual source for that kind of information. So that was kind of a nice little touch to call
Mhm.
out. But then as well, like they also said in the blog, it's obviously falling true to life that the first round games are all played on campus stadiums. So Notre Dame is traveling to Clemson in the first round.
We got the bowl projections here. We knew all 34 would be in. EA has said that repeatedly. Then as you look at the Arizona Bowl, Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl presented by Gin and Juice in the game. Custom conferences, we knew this would be in a very highly requested feature. We didn't know if it would be in, but we speculated years ago. They didn't have a choice with all the conference realignment that happened during the development of this game. They almost had to put it in to cover their own bases a little bit so they wouldn't be caught with an outdated conference when the game comes out.
For
How many
sure,
people?
yeah. Even just for them to be able to develop it, they had to be able to move teams around. So
You want to talk about some of the restrictions here on team size and conference size?
yeah, yeah. So one of the things they mentioned is conferences can only be a maximum of 20 teams, which today we don't have any more than that. So it's not like it's going to be difficult to stay within that restriction. The other thing is you can turn on and off divisions in NCAA 14 once you reached, I think it was 9 teams or something like that. You automatically had to have divisions, or maybe it was 10 or 12. But anyways,
Mm,
now you can turn those on and off just like in the real world. The other thing is the commissioner, if it's an online dynasty, only the commissioner can make these changes, and can only make them once a year. So in whenever they're setting it up, but then also in the off season, I believe. And then
mm,
the other one that's kind of strange, I guess they have a custom rule for this one, but the minimum you can do for a conference is four, but yet the Pac-12 has two. So
mhm.
I'm curious how that'll work. If you add a third one, does that lock you in and you can never go back to two, or how that will work?
The jersey patches and the field logos will update to reflect the proper conferences. I believe that was in the past. I know there were some people were asking today like it was a new feature. I'm like, I thought that was in the past, unless was having a Mandela effect. I really thought that existed.
I'm the same way. I could have swore at some point we had that. Again, like you said, Mandela effect. Am I completely off base? I tried to go back and find some articles on NCAA 14, but I couldn't find anything on that specifically. So definitely help us correct ourselves if we're wrong, because
Mm,
I could have sworn at least the on-field logos would be updated.
hmm Yeah, I know the stadium signage would not, but I understand that because it's a different art asset. That's baked in basically, where the other stuff was not. Look at the conference standings. Here, more of the custom conferences. You can see they put Florida State in the Big Ten, which might be accurate sooner
True to
than
the
later.
world. True to, yep.
Yep. Like you mentioned, here are the options.
Interesting here, if you go back real
Yep,
quick,
I'm trying. My computer will let me.
interesting here is that number of conference games four. So they're only playing four conference games in that season. So,
Mm,
the rest of you basically have 8 open games that you can schedule for the rest of the season.
that is interesting because it mentions that the Big Ten and SEC match their real life numbers with 8 and 9. Here's an example of the field art changing that we mentioned a minute ago. And there's the jersey patch changing. They've added a week 0 schedule this year. It's got the real life ones for the 2024 season. And it mentions it will exist in future years, but the majority of games will occur on week 1, which is no surprise. That's how it is in real life. One thing the blog mentioned that I think is pretty interesting, and I do want to highlight it, it it's our first indication of how we get those crowd themes and the color outs. We wondered how do you get those? What triggers that? According to the blog, your first home game, any rivalry game, or any game of the week will have the crowd stripe outs, those things, the color outs, etc. I couldn't help but wonder, what about the home college football playoff game? If you are lucky enough to host a game, or maybe
Do
they
you
consider that
get,
game, is that considered a game of the week? But then I would think that would be one as well. And also, what if you host a conference championship game at a home site? You would think that
yeah,
that would be one as well. But it was not listed, but that does not mean it doesn't work that way.
for sure. Other thing to highlight here is the
Mm,
return of custom schedules. So yeah, that's the screenshot we see here. So again, you can assign a week zero school or week zero opponent. Um, they didn't really touch on it other than to say you can only schedule the teams that are available for that given week.
mm,
But in the past, I know if you kind of tweaked with the schedule too much, that it would throw the other schools' schedule way off. So they may have two or even three FCS opponents on their schedule. So
mm.
hopefully the logic there is a lot improved and it can handle that a lot better than it did in the past.
Yep.
Regarding those custom schedules, only the commissioner can set those. So it's
Mm,
again, it's the same as it was in the past in NCAA 14. Only the commissioner can make those changes. So that way, not everybody's trying to step on each other's
mm.
toes trying to schedule the same school.
We got the awards in the game. Not a big surprise. We knew that. Here's a look at the Heisman. Tommy, you and I talked before the show. It seems like in a way it could be this is the not final, kind of a step back from what we had in 14, and where it would always give the winner stats up here towards the top, and right now we don't have that to kind of, or at least the leader's stats up here to know what's going on.
Yeah, that's I would have to think that's a placeholder because that's a lot of empty space for
And the actual
such big
trophy's
real
not even on
estate.
the graphic.
Exactly. That was the other thing I was gonna say. At least put the trophy up there beside the name or something like that.
Hmm.
It's got the Nissan logo, which okay, that's fine, but still give us something more to go on. Again, if we're not going to see it at the top, maybe see it in the right hand side with a page tab to the right or something like that. But yeah, it's definitely something that's kind of missing there.
And one of the things we mentioned throughout the show, like this panel over here, sometimes it has really excellent information, and there's other times where it doesn't really fit. In my opinion, this is one of the points where you don't need the running back's background in traits. This would be a good place for stats or anything else, or eliminate it completely and put the stats on each row so you can compare it directly versus having to go up and down, even if it did show it up top.
Yeah, for sure. And then as well, show their team's record because again,
Hmm.
the better a team does, the more likely they'll be considered for the Heisman.
It mentions in the blog that there are several licensed awards. We knew of a couple. The Heisman, obviously. Luke Grozo Award is in. The Lombardi, which we speculated for a long time might be in because it was not part of the National College Football Awards Association. They mentioned the Unitas Golden Arm Award is in. I'm assuming that they will place that for the best quarterback. And also, we know the head coach of the year will be in the game, and also the Broyles Award for best coordinator. So I wonder what will happen if the best coordinator gets fired in the carousel. Hopefully, there's some logic to prevent that from happening.
One note here, you bring up the coordinator,
Mm,
and I don't think we really got a chance to talk about this earlier. Uh, Different from NCAA 14 is that now as
mm,
the coordinator, you also get to play the other side of the ball. So like the headache was in 14, if you were an offensive coordinator, your defense may give up 55 points and you got to play keep
mm,
up with it. So at least now you actually, as the offensive coordinator, you also control the defense.
mm. Or look at the Heisman screen, another made for social media graphic, which is cool. And like I said, they
Absolutely.
got some secondary and logos here with Donald, a couple different versions on their modern logo there as well.
Yeah, I'd say secondary and even tertiary because you've got
Yeah,
both ducks there.
All Americans. That's kind of like what we had in the past. One thing that's worth noting is that the game will chart conference records for the first time. So if you set the record as, say, the best running back in a conference, it will track that and keep that as well. In the past, it was just, I believe, team and like individual
National.
team awards, national, but
Yeah.
conference for the first time. They showed it at the end here, at the end of the blog, and we have more stuff beyond this we want to get to that we think is actually pretty big stuff. Thank you for sticking with us this long, everybody. The pride stickers, another Mandela effect. I believe we had these in the past. Maybe I need to double check here. Um,
No, we definitely have had those in the past.
DJU, and they worked with schools get proper locations. Then Will Howard, Ohio State, his Buckeyes.
The stickers can go over the
I,
holes in the helmet. They're floating in
yeah, you
midair.
can tell which ones are what the actual textures are, where they
Yeah, yeah.
have stickers and don't have stickers
But obviously that would be very difficult to try to fit every
with
single
every helmet.
helmet style and everything like that. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I get why it's that way, but it is just funny to point out. It's not a knock on EA for that. I understand why it's that
No,
way.
no.
A couple other things we want to get to. Commissioner options. One of the things when you set up a league, it mentions you can pick the roster file. So as we mentioned earlier, we really don't know yet what you can or cannot edit in terms of rosters with the licensed or unlicensed players. And a big one, you can force a sim win. That's one of those. We wanted it back in 14 in those days and never got it. I think Madden got it like a year or two later. So it was so frustrating when they got it. When we wanted it so darn bad and never got it. And that will be in the
And,
game.
and I'm curious, they mentioned the scenario where the player doesn't they fall off the face of the earth so they don't play their game or something like that. But what if there's the scenario that, I think there was part of the discussion was that if a player abused something like they restarted the game 10 times, can you sim a loss for them or something like that? I don't know if that's the way it works in Madden or not, but I would want to have that option to at least be able to, quote unquote punish them somehow. One of the things that I noticed in the video that actually is probably going to fly under the radar of a lot of people because it goes by pretty fast is that the score ticker is actually in the game this year. This is kind of the first confirmation that we've had that. We've had that question and weren't sure, but now this basically confirms that yes, we will see the results of other scores down here at the bottom. And so we knew would have the break-ins, but this actually, you can see it during the game. So yeah, again, that I saw that a couple of different times in the video, but this one kind of does a really good job of highlighting that. So
Reminds me of the
that
CBS
was
Sports format. I think it's because of the College Bowl 25 logo on the lower left, with it being that round logo in the front. I don't know, for some reason it
yeah,
screams
yeah,
CBS Sports, even though I think theirs is typically blue. But I don't know. When I look at this real quickly, I just think CBS Sports.
yep. I'd be curious if it shows any player stats or just the scores, because like in real world, you'll see some quick player stats or something like that. So
Hmm.
I'd be curious. One of the other things I noticed here in the video is this is obviously the national championship, Georgia and Michigan. Um, But because they don't have a record here at the bottom, you don't have, I mean, obviously there's not going to be a score ticker because there's no other games going on. But this kind of suggests to me, at least, that this is a play now game.
Hmm.
Obviously, it'd be easy for EA to set it up this way instead of having to sim an entire dynasty to get this set up. So, presumably, yeah, you can play the national championship and actually set up who you want your opponent to be to kind of be able to get those results.
Because it also
Uh,
doesn't give the record below the team name where the previous Dynasty screen note did that. But again, this looks like a little different score bug. They're kind of matching ESPN's, even though they're not using ESPN with that gold. Gold and black is very much reminiscent of
ab-
the score bug that ESPN uses for the college football playoff.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And then kind of with that, we also get our first look at kind of some of the celebration that occurs when you win it. So again, this is kind of the first look. You can see it very well in the video. And to me, this is kind of a great little shot there that you
Hmm.
get to see actually your team celebrating with it and everything. So it's kind of nice. Speaking of trophies, the other interesting thing here is again, you're going to see player celebrations for winning conference championship. In this case, somebody's moved Clemson to the MAC conference. So yeah, here they're getting awarded the conference championship trophy. Or actually, no, this may be a bowl trophy now that I
I believe
think
it's a
about
bowl
that.
trophy.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think
I
it's
was gonna say
the
that's pretty
Sugar Bowl, I think.
okay. I say that's pretty ornate for the MAC. But yeah, long story short, they are getting moved over and are playing in that bowl game. So but yeah, this is kind of our first look at some of the presentations that occur when you do win those championships. So it's a nice touch and it looks really good to me. It's very sharp and very kind of again if you could capture that screenshot and share it on social media or something like that.
It's interesting that the Michigan one we just saw for the national title, they have all their helmets off, but then for this one, they all have their helmets on. Like I wonder what work in progress, or they didn't get to it yet, or they just for whatever reason. That stood out to me when you do, especially when you do the comparison.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's I didn't even think about that, but yeah, you're right. I'd be curious to see if that's the only time is just if you win the national championship, you can see what their players' hair look like. But that's actually the first kind of indication that we'll have helmets off at some point. So maybe on the sidelines you see them, kind of in some uh, cut screens or something like that.
There was one other thing they did not mention, Tommy, and you pointed this out to me, so I'll let you talk about it. They did not mention a website or an app for Dynasty.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting to hear maybe an offhand comment about it or something like that, just to say yes, we have a website. Because honestly, I loved the website in the past. yes, it could have been improved, but at least to be able to access it from anywhere and be able to make changes on the fly or advance your dynasty or something like that. So yeah, I was hoping to hear at least a mention of something about that, just because I'm hoping that EA does have that. Obviously, that doesn't mean that it's not coming. It just means that they are not ready to talk about it. So maybe it comes later. But it's kind of a callback to something we talked about a long time ago, like 6 months ago or more,
Mm.
that um, they did have a position for hire for a mobile developer. In fact, it
Mm.
may have been a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
But yeah, long story short, it it lines up to think that they would have something to be able to manage and advance your dynasty or something like that. But yeah, I'll be
Even
curious to see if they come back with something.
and even Madden has a basic app, so you would think college football would get something, even if it's bare bones, just at least that to check the status of your dynasty and what's going on with the members.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like you said, Madden at least has the minimum of advance the league. So you're not going to get a lot of detail from Madden otherwise from the app, but at least, if you're traveling and want to advance the league, and that way nobody else has to wait on you to get home or something.
Mm. After the Dynasty blog and video came out, we asked the community some questions. What are you most excited for in Dynasty? What are you apprehensive about? And what aspect do you want to see and hear more about? Tommy, no offense, but we've talked for an hour plus. We'll let the community go on
Yeah,
this one.
for sure.
Deontay Rose says he's excited. Overall recruiting and how things like location, prestige, playing time, pipeline, and etc. matters. Aspect I want to see or hear more about is as a small school, how difficult it will be to go into different regions of the country to recruit the guys you want. Can't wait. Michael Hamilton, most excited to see the true challenge of rebuilding. Worried that there's almost too many features and stuff won't work. I think that's a valid concern. There's a lot going on here. And I want to hear more Madden. These devs at College Football absolutely killed it. They left no stone unturned. Bravo. QT says he's excited about the coaching trees, apprehensive about Coach Mode or Super Sim. We still don't know that yet. That's a big question hanging out there. And he wants more
The
info.
Super Sim is in, but the
Oh,
coach mode, yeah,
correct.
that we don't know for sure.
You're correct. We did get a brief passing mention that Super Sim is in. He wants more info on player and coaching abilities and perks. I would agree with that. I'd like to see the full list of player ones as well. Tyler Jameson, I'm excited that the conference logos automatically switch to the uniform and the field when changing conferences. Also glad it seems like progression and recruiting will be a challenge. People get bored easily. Dynasty gives you something to grind for. East Coast USC fan says also, of course, he responds earlier, so we're getting the PS first before we get to the letter. Aspect I want more about. How much info do you have on a team when in the coaching carousel? Last year, 2013, all you had was the previous record, no returning starters, idea, nothing. That's a very good question.
Yeah, I would have to think you get more because you can see all the coach details. So surely as a coach, you can see all the school details. Maybe not the full details. Maybe you don't get to see the entire roster, but maybe at least kind of what players are returning and stuff.
And JB, who's out on assignment, competing with others in recruiting and transfer portal, plus building from a coordinator at a small school and moving up, being able to build up a small school with today's details. And both the transfer portal and coaching carousel in action from start to finish wants to see that. I'm the same way. I really want to see the portal. That one screenshot was not enough to wet my whistle. It was nice, but it wasn't quite enough. East Coast USC fan, excited about the transfer portal. The rest feels close to 13 with the features split up, i.e., position specific coach upgrades. He's apprehensive about the user interface navigation. EA has often overcomplicated action items that would exponentially help with flow. I would agree with that. My first look at it on that Monday night screen was what's going on here. I think it makes sense, but I can see where people might think it's a little convoluted, and he wants to see more about player development.
And the biggest thing for menus is the speed. Obviously,
Hmm.
Madden, everybody complains about those, but even in CA 14, it could sometimes be a little slow and clunky to try to get
Mm.
around to where you're going. So hopefully, yeah, hopefully that all works a little bit more smoothly.
Miguel Santana said still a little skeptical of the new recruiting system, but I'm still excited. I would agree with that. Until we see it in action and play it, I am not going to give it a final grade yet, not by a long shot. Kellen McLean, I still need to know if we can recreate recruits to add to the recruiting classes and edit CPU generated players. The licensing excuse doesn't apply to fictional players. I'm pretty sure we've heard that you cannot create recruits, but you can edit computer generated players at least to some extent. Is that matching up with what you've heard? I'm not imagining that, am I?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure we've heard confirmed that you cannot create recruits because I remember people being disappointed in that news.
Mm.
Um, I think what he's talking about here, though, is the ability to edit recruits either after you've signed them or during the recruiting process or something like that. Um, I, I don't think we've heard anything about that either, so I'm doubtful that you can. But I guess the only other side of that coin, though, is that in Madden, you can fully edit your players. It goes into kind of an audit log of what changes you made. So did you change their number, their position, or did you give them 99 speed? You can kind of see that in the history. But yeah, I'd be curious if that kind of translates over as well.
I want to think I've heard that you can edit some of those players once they get into the dynasty, but like they're very vague on what nobody's come out and said any idea. Is that name? Is that ratings? Is it just their number? We don't know. There's like I said, there's so many questions around the editing that people still want to know. BS Slayer says, why have they made this so much like Madden with all this paperwork to do? Just make the game solid. In like 12 or 13, they were the best of all time. Who wants all this coach stuff? Recruiting is enough. I think that is a
Honestly,
concern if it's too much. I get his concern, but I don't know if we can say that yet that it's too much.
yeah, I mean, I totally get the concern and it's valid, but
Mhm.
honestly, to me, it's right up my wheelhouse. I mean, I want the interest in a dynasty to last the entire 12 months of the
Mhm.
game cycle. So,
Mhm.
definitely, I think this will do that. And, again, it can be a bit much, and there's going to be people that get annoyed, and hopefully, there's some sort of, you know, let the CPU take care of it for me type settings. But yeah, long story short, I'm excited for it.
Aaron Salzman says, I'm interested to see how the portal works in conjunction with recruiting. Does one affect the other year over year? I think that's a I think that's a good question. Andre Mills says everything. Straight from Cloud City says you already know, but excited for struggling with recruiting, portal in the coaching tree. Apprehensive about losing studs to the portal if my team isn't good enough yet. And he wants to see, can conference scheduling be customized with flex protection model? How many protected games can we have with a team builder conference? Based on what these the screen we show, I don't think there's a lot of anything with flex protection or protected games.
Yeah, there's no mention of it. And then as well, based upon how we would do it in the past in NCAA 14, there's no screen that lines up to that in the screenshots we
Mhm.
have now. So my guess is that there are no protected games. I understand definitely you'd want to have that because, rivals and things like that. But yeah, I don't think we're going to have that option.
And the last comment, Mr. Smith says he's most excited for the coaching trees, recruiting, and the 12-team playoff. Apprehensive about going to Death Valley to play LSU and becoming very afraid. And he wants to hear more about customization and can you change the players' positions? I believe you, if it's your own team, sure, but I don't know if you can do that for the existing roster or the other players.
Again, yeah, that would definitely in the off season you can change your player's position, but throughout the middle of the season, I don't know if you'll be able to. My concern there is, I guess it doesn't matter if because college you can't leave in the middle of the season, but yeah, my concern is I don't want to have 12 linebackers in right outside linebacker and middle linebacker and only have one in left linebacker and they ding me for it or something like that.
Right. Again, to run down what we talked about at the beginning of the show, one big thing we still have not heard about is whatever always on social connection means. That's something that kind of leaked out from, I believe, a press release or product listing somewhere. We still don't know what that means. Maybe that is the app or website. I don't know. We still don't know when Team Builder comes out. Gotta think maybe next week, but until EA says something, we are just guessing. And the next deep dive will be Road to Glory. They've given no date, but gotta think that would be next week. So we know Team Builder is hanging out there for the release date. Road to Glory is the next deep dive. Other areas that we expect maybe to hear something about, maybe an Ultimate Team deep dive, maybe a Road to the College Football Playoff deep dive. That's a big feature they've been talking about. Will Team Builder get a deep dive? And obviously, Tommy, the player ratings. So we know it's coming at some point. We assume maybe next week. You got to think they would want to do this all before early access because once people get the game, no offense, they're not going to pay attention to EA.
You're right. Yeah, once I've got the game in my hands, only thing I'll listen to EA for is for patches and maybe
Right.
some DLC or something like that.
So basically, they've got, as we record this, they have about less than 2 weeks to do all this. And
Yeah,
that's with 4th of July in there as well.
exactly. Yeah, there's not a lot of time there, so they they've got a small marketing window to kind of take advantage of.
Well, with that, we're going to wrap up the show. Thank you for everyone who hung in with us this long. It was a long blog, a great video. For Tommy, I'm CDJ. JB will hopefully join us next show. Thank you for watching and listening to this edition of the Gaming Tailgate Podcast.